We are live! Whee! One person's gotten on. Really strange dealing with the bit of delay that there is with the live broadcast. There's 3 people. Hi, Legends and Myths. How are you doing today? Hey, Athusa. I got your question. You're on the list. One of our topics to talk about today. We have got some smoke in the air apparently in our area, but it's not too bad at the moment. Legends and Myths says, I'm good, how are you? And so I had a funny thing the other day. I got up in the morning, went to the kitchen sink, looked out of the kitchen window, and there was a cat. One of our neighborhood cats had climbed up on top of my arbor, on top of my wisteria, and it was just sitting up there looking and saw me. And then it was like, oh, there's a person. And then it climbed down the arbor onto the kitchen windowsill. So I went outside to say hi, and then it tried to get through my screen door to get in the house. I had to close the door so it couldn't get in because it's not an indoor cat and it's not our kitty cat. But I thought that was pretty hysterical. Not something I've ever seen before in my neighborhood. Usually the cats aren't like perched up on top of the arch over the garden. But yeah, I guess it's a good view. So that was sort of fun and entertaining. It was different for sure. And then one morning when I got up, I looked out the window and there was a doe walking by in the middle of the street looking around like, hey, I can keep on walking. That's one of the things I like about my area is that we can just have animal encounters, not dangerous ones, on a regular basis just by being in our house. So some entertainment through the whole keeping ourselves safe kind of thing. So we just did the video on Earth, which is the 4 elements. We still have one element video to go, which is the Akasha element. But one of the questions that's come up is, how do you balance yourself in your element, in the elements? Because I talk about that a lot. It's not about being excessively good in one element or another, because that leads to imbalance in your personality and your experiences and all sorts of other things. But it's about, gaining experience with all the elements and incorporating them into you to be as balanced an individual as you can be. So, hi, last of her kind. So, it's like everything else, it's a process. It doesn't happen right away. One of the things, the first thing you need to do is to identify which elements you're lacking. And so you can look at your personality traits and you can sort of get a pretty clear idea. You can put positive and negative traits, however you want to define them, and then think about what element that they're expressing. So basic example would be like if you have trouble with rage, which I don't assume any of you have, but as an example, then you probably have too much fire. It's like consuming everything around you, going out of control. Metabolically, you can look at your system and how it works to get an idea of that too. So if you are having trouble gaining weight, that could also be an indication of excess fire. So just, as some examples. Or if you get so consumed by your projects and you can't stop and you just keep on going. So every element has got its positives and its negatives as far as what we would consider personality traits go. But, it's like no one can just tell you this is what it is. I suppose some people think they can because, they're psychic or whatever. But I think a better thing is for you to figure out for yourself, because the point of the path has to do with taking control of your own life, your own personality, and doing your own work so that you become what you want to be, not what someone else wants you to be. So there's always that kind of tricky tricky part to it. And when you define what it is that you think isn't working in your elemental balance, then you find ways of working with that element and connecting to it. And usually you'll find that it's the element you like least is the one that you're most imbalanced in as far as like lack of, and the one you like the most is the one you're imbalanced in, as in it's the one you always turn to all the time. So Last of Her Kind says, I really liked the video, the Earth video. I'm a Capricorn and the part on grounding really resonated. Good. I'm a Capricorn too, and I sure as heck needed to learn how to ground. Violet says, hi, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Violet.
Hello.
Ian says hello.
Keep sitting over here, says what?
Yeah, he's having trouble with allergies today, so his nose is running amok, so he's a little farther away from the microphone today because he doesn't want to be sniffling on air too much. But he has something he really wants to say. I'm sure he'll get closer and talk into the microphone. So some of the ways that you can help with the balancing of the elements inside of yourself is the breathing exercises that we've mentioned from time to time, where you breathe in the element and experience it and sort of sit with it, and then you breathe it out. So it can sort of give you an indication of what is happening with you. And it should be not like a intense, dramatic, sudden shift if you're doing it right. It should be a gradual kind of thing where you start to get changes in how you respond to the things that happen around you in life and spirit world and everything else. If you start to do this, you will discover that your natural abilities seem to dampen all of a sudden. It's like something that you were doing all the time that was so easy you didn't even have to think about. Now that you're trying to balance the elements in you, all of a sudden that is not as pronounced. But that's a positive sign, because that means that you're actually gaining some ground and getting some balance in the other elements. And then when you get to that balanced state and you start doing the work, your abilities will be more controlled and more reliable and even stronger than they were before, and you'll get more out of them. And so, those of us who are born with extreme abilities, that's a challenge for us to balance back, like with me, and living in the woods and in touch with nature and learning about grounding and being in this life, because I was always out there in other lifetimes and other spaces and places and wandering around the solar system and so forth, and partly to escape the life I was in, the experiences I was having. That certainly was an escape mechanism that I developed to be able to withdraw from the horrors of what was happening here in my family. So yeah, it's definitely a process, and it's okay for it to take time, and it doesn't have to work right away. So the Violet says, oh, she said hi already. Trinity says hi, Siofra, hi, chat, and hi, Ian. Hi, Trinity. So so for the person who asked this question, if you want to get more specific, you feel free to type something in, and I'll try and answer a more specific and a less broad kind of sense, because it's like one of those things as far as that goes. So I had some encounters in my bedroom this week. Oh, Athusa says, thank you, that's a great help. Good. Like I said, any other questions, though, you feel free to ask. So one night this week, when I was going to bed, I had like 6 or 7 of those little short people. I don't know exactly what they all are, because they all have different faces and things, but they're all about the same height. I think they're about 3 feet high or so, and they kept changing faces. Like they'd have me see one face and then another face. I think they want to make sure that I can tell the difference between them, and I'm actually seeing their faces, not like some image in my head. And because they were very distinctive faces, and some of them I'd seen previously. This is the first time I've seen them like all together. Usually they've come like one or two at a time. So, I tried to find out if they wanted something or if they wanted to tell me something, but apparently that's not happening at this point. This is just a get me used to seeing them and not freaking out about it. So I think it's okay. Ian's going to have to go and take care of his allergy attack. Yeah, so it's like I think that that's what's going on with it, that they're trying to train me in that sense, adjust my reactions and responses to seeing them before we go further with that. And then the following night, I had that female fae that smells like lavender essential oil come, and she showed herself more to me that night. And again, it was like very intense energy. They've got some very intense energy, but it was just like having me see the face, and I find it fascinating because it's just such a distinct thing. I wish I was a one of those people that a sketch artist who could just draw what I saw, but that's not my particular gift. So unfortunately, so anyway, so that's that. Hi, Canary. I'm going to leave here for just a second and turn off the heat because Ian has left and I don't think he's coming back, and the heat's going to get too warm for me. So you guys think about some questions and write them out, and I'll be right back as I blot out everything. There we go. Okay. I'm back. Hopefully I will actually show up on the camera in a second. There I am. Ryder, hello everyone, and good day to you, Siofra. Thank you. Glad to see you back, Ryder. Yay. Glad you could make it today. So, yeah, so that's what's been going on as far as that goes. We got a full moon coming up too, so that could be why, partly. And then, of course, May Day is coming, which is a big time for them. So I've continued to work on my project. So I'll show you my progress on my project here. I'll get this up here so you can see it. This is the Bridget piece that I've been working on. And I'm actually to the point where I'm working on the last bird on that side. So it's really coming along quite well. And I'm pretty pleased with it. I still have more to do. I'll have to, trim the edges and then do a bead around the entire piece, and then I think I'm going to mount it on a small canvas and paint the canvas black, something plain, so it'll just shine, as it were, all by itself. So yes, so anyway, so that's what that is. Oh yeah, and I had thought last week, that I heard that the helicopter on Mars had flown, but apparently they'd just gotten it out of the box, as it were, and then now they're having to do some reprogramming, so it hasn't, as far as I know, actually flown yet. But oh well, these things happen. Information is like that. So the consecrating your tool was the other question that came in, and I mean, there's dedication and consecration and charging, and I'm just surprised that I haven't actually done a video on the entire subject yet. Just one of those things. Things come up and I do something and forget about that. I like the colors too. So dedicating the tool is just basically telling the universe that you are going to be using this object, whatever it is, for magical purposes only. That's what it's for, and that's what you're doing it for. And usually dedication comes before consecration, or can be a part of consecration. Violet says, I am doing a return to sender spell with devil, shoestring, and whiskey, black candle with my enemies spelled backward on the candle, and black screws to jam into a mirror 3 times and wrap in red velvet, then discard from home. Any suggestions? Wait to full moon. I'd actually, if you were going to use moon energy for part of this, I'd wait till after the full moon, and as the moon is waning, and sort of add that to the spell work that you're doing, so that as the spell continues to work, it's dissolving the connection and minimizing it, making it weaker and weaker and weaker until there's nothing left. And then on the first crescent after the dark of the moon, do something to reinforce yourself. Some kind of a self-healing, self-love, pulling in your power, reaffirming your power, that kind of thing. That's what I would do. So Canary says, I've been having very different experiences in meditation lately, parts of the body going numb and energy shooting around the numb areas. I'm not leaning in any kind of way to make that happen. Ideas? Probably Kundalini. And it can have a lot of different forms and a lot of different experiences. I often get like a tingling thing, and then it like can rush through different parts of my body. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it unless it starts to make walking or talking difficult, because then it might be a medical issue and you might want to get it checked out, like something along with the nerve pathways. So never ignore something completely just because it might be something, normal magic wise. Ryder says, or Canary says hello to Ryder. Well, yeah, she was just gone last week. Yep. So, you're welcome, Violet. I think that would be a good way of doing it. So back to consecrating, dedicating tools. The way I would do it, I would draw a circle of some kind. Call in the elemental heads or the directions, the elements themselves or what have you. It's a fairly formal, generally speaking, process. And so often what you do with the tool is you actually put it in dirt, touch the dirt, put dirt on it for earth. You wave incense around it for air. You pass it through a candle flame quickly if it's something that's burnable, or like up above the flame just to have the heat to represent the fire, and sprinkle water on it unless it's not water safe, in which case you do more of a visualization with that and pass it over your cup, that kind of thing. You can use salt for earth instead of dirt. And so basically the idea is you present it to each of the directions and say what you're going to be using it for. Let me get back to this in a second. Violet says, Canary says, okay, I've had the shooting up my back, but I didn't connect the two things together. Violet says, does it matter that I let the whiskey evaporate as it waits to the right time, or should I get more whiskey? I don't think it matters, but you could cover it up maybe if you wanted to preserve it, or add whiskey just before you send it out, because that's sort of a good thing. The evaporating whiskey sort of would take it through the air element and disperse it that way, which may be the intent of the spell. So you know more about the spell that you're using than me. Canary says, good, thanks, hope you're well too. Okay, so when you're doing this, consecrating a tool like that, I put together just sort of a simple little thing for the wands when people buy me a wand, to send them an example of how to consecrate a tool. And so, basically it's like, powers of the north, guardians of the earth, I consecrate this, whatever the tool is, and charge it with your energies. I purify it this night and make this tool sacred. And then, that's passing over the salt. I started in the north for some reason with this one. And then holding the item over the smoke of the incense, something like powers of the east, guardians of the air. I consecrate this fill in the blank tool and charge it with your energies. I purify it this night and make this tool sacred. Passing the tool over the flame of the candle, saying powers of the south, guardians of fire. I consecrate this tool and charge it with your energies. I purify it this night and make this tool sacred. Pass it over the cup of water, saying, powers of the west, guardians of water, I consecrate this wand and charge it, or in this case it was a wand, whatever the tool is, and charge it with your energies. I purify it this night and make this tool sacred. And then you hold the tool up and you say, I charge this, whatever the tool is, in the name of the old ones, or in this case, I consecrate this in the name of the old ones, the ancients, the sun and the moon and the stars, by the powers of earth, of air, of fire, and water. And this one has, I banish the energies of any previous owners and make it new and fresh. I consecrate this tool to the art of magic, and it is mine. So, like, the format is simple, and you can make it as personal as you want, depending on what your particular practice looks like and what your associations are, and everything else as far as that goes. Philippa says hello Philippa. So this one sort of combined a few things, like the banishing, getting rid of previous owner's energy is something usually I would do first, and if it's something like, if it's a material that I have collected, like when I make my wands, there's no previous owner, and I don't want to banish the energy of the spirit of the wood out of it, because I work with living spirits. So I don't do that part for wands, but if I was doing that for like a store-bought athame, or something like that, if it's an athame that has special meaning to you, and it was owned by someone like from your family, for example, then you don't want to do that, because that might be part of the energy of the piece, like an ancestor kind of thing being passed down and so forth. So that's going to be one of those things that that you do. All right. So Ryder says, at Canary, as well as Canby, my back is feeling Hulk-like. I had to do my food shopping yesterday and carry it all home in a rucksack on my back. Oh, yuck. That doesn't sound like fun. Canary says, any crystals that could stimulate Kundalini? Well, you don't necessarily want to stimulate your Kundalini. You want to let it do its thing naturally. So, yeah, there are some that are supposed to help with that, but I would do more stuff about grounding and clearing your energy to help, get rid of any blockages that you might naturally have or be working through. The more you clear yourself and your energy, the better able the Kundalini is to use the channels, because you've got like 3 different channels going up your spine, the lunar, solar, and center channel. So the tree meditation is really good for that, because that helps to cleanse and purify and calm down and balance the different chakra centers during the meditation, and then connects you with the right kind of energies from the earth and from the air, that's out there. So I think that those kinds of exercises would be more effective than just trying to raise your Kundalini with a crystal. Kundalini can be dangerous if it rises too quickly and too abruptly, and can be very uncomfortable, and in some cases can cause a health crisis. So there's some documented cases of that. And if Ian was here, he would tell me right away the person I'm thinking of, but he's not. Anyway, it might come to me, it might not. But anyway, yeah. So as with the balancing yourself with the elements, it's a similar kind of process. You want to be as balanced as you can to let the Kundalini rise. And that minimizes the seizure-like activity that I had to experience when it was going through me, when I was with someone who was forcing the Kundalini to rise. So Canary says that Ryder, good going, thanks. Hope you're well too. Let's see. Oh, I already read that. All right. Violet says, is moth considered Luna energy or air or both? I'm thinking both, potentially, because it's a nighttime insect, if you're going to connect to it that way. And of course, the Luna moth would be Luna. as they named it that. Canary says, right, okay, I feel a lot of it up to my throat, but it doesn't really move past that. So that could mean that the throat chakra is the one where you've got a block happening right now, and that's the one you need to clear out in order to let it happen. And when the throat is blocked, that often means there's someone you need to talk to, some communication that needs to happen, something that you haven't said or are afraid to say or can't say for one reason or another. So you can help clear that out. If you can't actually say it out loud or to the person it needs to be said to, you can write it down, and that can help with that, because the throat is definitely a spirit power in and of itself. And it's like the beginning of the spirit chakras. You've got the physical chakras, the root, the sacrum, and the hara below, and then the upper ones, the throat, third eye, and the crown, are the spirit chakras, and then the heart is like the balancing between the two, between the physical body and physical life and spirit body, spirit life, that kind of thing. So, yeah. And if something feels off, don't do it, for sure. Trinity says, I wonder if my Kundalini is activated because whenever I meditate or go into a trance, my body rocks and sways on its own. Yes, that would be called a Kriya. And that happens when people are meditating and their Kundalini is moving. It's trying to move your body, move through blockages, and like I said, they can get violent in some cases where if the body isn't ready for the energy, and to a person, an outside observer, it can appear as if someone's having a seizure, which is what I was going through, and my partner who was making my Kundalini rise was going through. In fact, they were trying to get us to call an ambulance one day when we were in massage class, and I'm like, no, this is normal. Nothing bad's going on here. We don't need an ambulance. Krishnamurti, he just started coming. Krishnamurti's the guy. I'm going to check. So, question has come up about Kundalini rising in a negative sense and examples. And is it Krishnamurti that had the extreme, almost killed Gopi Krishna? Okay. I got it almost. I got it close.
And like the symptoms of it coming up badly, or?
Well, no, I was just trying to remember the name of the person so someone can look that up if they want to. It's a well-documented case of Kundalini coming up too quickly and causing potential health issues and almost death.
Yeah, it's like a worst case scenario.
Right.
Which he did himself by continuing to push himself when he was feeling exhausted and tired and should have quit and didn't. Kept forcing it.
Right, so that's the thing, never force it. So Moonface says, hey, back. Ryder says, what are some of the effects or symptoms of the Kundalini rising too fast? Okay, now we have the question.
Well, and we have to differentiate between rising too fast and usually it's being suddenly released is what happens, rather than like rising too fast. It's suddenly released and it's overwhelming. And Gopi Krishna suffered burning sensations, felt like his body was on fire, made him get thin, he couldn't eat. He had awakened the solar channel and not the lunar channel, which have to be balanced. So I haven't even got into that in any of my stuff, but the solar channel has to be balanced with the lunar channel, or otherwise you get an imbalance that causes this. And then at the end, he eventually survived it by figuring out what needed to be done and diverting the Kundalini through his moon channel. And then it was more balanced, so it was okay after that. But that was the main thing, was his total imbalance, and he did not try to awaken the Kundalini. He was focusing on the crown lotus. That was all, but he managed to awaken it.
Yep. So, cautionary tale, for sure.
But most people are never going to have that problem.
And the main thing is, like with everything else, balance is the key. And
balance and don't push it too hard.
Right. And that's why I had the adverse reaction with the seizure-like activity. I mean, I had at one point, I mean, it can do some pretty remarkable stuff. And I had one instance where I was blocking it because I was out in public and I did not want to experience that at work. And I blocked it by holding my knees, bending my knees and holding my knees to my chest. And when I got home and straightened out, it was like I was pulled up. I had only the heels of my feet and the top of my head on my bed, and I was suspended like that for a minute or so. And then it went like this and just started bouncing me. So, and when it happens like that, it's like an external force. It doesn't feel internal at all. And so there's a lot of confusion that people can have depending on their spiritual or religious beliefs. Some people who are Christian believe that they're being possessed or they're being attacked. There is the sensual side of it, sexual sensations that can happen with Kundalini depending on where in the chakra system it is at the time. And some people have decided that, you know, they're being attacked by a succubus or an incubus or what have you. And generally speaking, it passes as the energy continues to rise up. So it's just sort of a normal thing with the Kundalini, at least in my experience. So, Ryder says thank you, Ian. That helps a lot. And Jason says thank you, Ian. Oh, Jonathan has arrived. Hi, Jonathan. And Ryder says, hey, Ian, how's it going? And I forgot to say here, Canary apparently with the throat chakra thing, she says there's a lot of that. I really can't say a lot of these things. I will definitely do that writing exercise, yeah, to get clear out the throat chakra. Because apparently I was correct about that. So Jonathan says, I'm late, time is late, everything is late, hello. And everyone else said hello to Jonathan. Jason said thank you. Ryder says thank you. Canary says, I will look that name up. I've been working with it for a while, and I listen heavily to my spirit guide's advice. I do get burning sensations, but it's not distressing or painful. All right.
Yeah, I mean, there was no, in his case, there was no doubt. Like, just about killed him right away, so it wasn't.
Oh, and Ryder just thanked Jonathan for the sonnet, which I passed along. And Jonathan said you deserved it. Okay. Canary says, hello to Jonathan. So we're getting a nice little core group in here. It's always fun. Trying to think of, well, it's time for more questions, I guess. So, Jonathan, did you get my answer to your question? I sent it off this before the show. And do you have any questions about my response? I guess would be one thing to ask. Because it's a pretty typical thing that can happen, especially when you're working with energies and stuff like that. And I'm glad to hear that your item is working so well for you. So that's good. Kind of a gray day today. I think that's mostly fog. Ryder says, if the Kundalini energy stops at the heart chakra, what is the best thing to do with that? Or would you do the same as the throat chakra? Well, if it stops at the heart chakra, if you can open up the heart center, then it'll smooth out the energies below and above. So yeah, you can, like the earlier question when someone asked about using crystals to help activate the Kundalini, you can use crystals better to like clear yourself and to calm things down. So for the heart center, you could try like a rose quartz, something that's soft and soothing, or you can look in yourself and see, the difference. When the energy gets up to the heart, it helps to activate feelings versus emotions, and so it's a good place to process a lot of stuff. And it definitely helps to bring more balance into our lives as far as it goes, because if we're just reacting on an emotional level, gut level, all the time, then we're generally speaking making mistakes. Usually big ones. So Jonathan is going to go read my response that I gave him earlier today because he hasn't seen it yet. Yeah, so Ryder says, brilliant, thank you. You're welcome. Always good to learn more stuff, get perspective on things. I have maybe a paranormal investigation to do. I was going to start it last Monday, but Sunday night I ended up with my spasms that kept me awake all night, and I was not feeling very together on Monday, so I canceled my meeting with these two people to see what their issues are and to talk about what's going on. So that could be interesting. But if I'm going to meet somebody about that subject, I want to be 100% when I do it, and not like running on half empty or a quarter full or whatever it was on Monday. So I'm going to get a hold of them later today and see if we can reschedule for tomorrow, and I can start the process of trying to figure out what's going on. When I do those kinds of investigations, there's always a combination of things generally that are going on, and the most dangerous thing is people's beliefs in what's happening becoming entrenched in what's happening in their house. Sort of like with the Kundalini and deciding that you're being attacked by an incubus or a succubus. Same type of thing. And once people get really settled in their head as to exactly what's going on and they know what it is and it's not good, it's difficult to get them unentrenched. It's like to change their mind about what's happening can be impossible. And I've done a few cases like that over the years where, somebody was convinced that what they had was demons and they wouldn't accept any other answer. And so there wasn't demons, so there wasn't anything I could do to help at that point. I think they got in a priest to get rid of the demons. And I will recommend that for people who've got very specific belief systems, because part of that, how that works, is the belief of the people that are there. Believing that it worked is kind of paramount when it comes to a lot of that kind of stuff, when it's being fed by their fears, anxieties, or beliefs. So it gets complicated. Okay, so Jonathan says, I just skimmed your email. Excellent answer. I will probably read it another dozen times tonight. You're smart. Thank you very much, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Canary says, what can you do with Kundalini once it's done everything it's doing to clear out your energy? Well, people who have their Kundalini actually fully risen and they have nothing left to do are called enlightened beings. So, as an enlightened being, you would know what to do. I guess would be the thing to say. You would know your purpose and what actions needed or did not need to be taken.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do a bit on the brow chakra soon, because there's a lot of other stuff there, like just awakening that one can lead to contact with your inner guru, who can actually teach you things and who doesn't have the fallibility of a physical guru. It's more like the higher self, I think. But yes, there's a long ways to go before you get full development with the Kundalini. Years and years and years.
So Trinity says, laugh out loud, and Canary says, oh, how wonderful. Yeah, I don't know for sure how wonderful that is. I guess if we ever get there, we'll let you know and say, yeah, it's a good thing to do. Go ahead and get that enlightenment or what have you. But yeah, it's a very rare thing, I think. And it's not, all of this, having too much of a goal, like you have decided what the result needs to be, is often something that gets in your way when it comes to what needs to happen. And so it's okay not to have a definitive goal. And that works with everything. Like, if you've decided you must have this one job, this is the only job in existence that's going to fulfill all the needs that you have, and this is the job you have to have, and you go after that job, and then either you get it or you don't get it. Either way, it could not be good. If you don't get it, then you're like morose, disappointed, a failure, and all this other stuff. If you do get it, it may not be the job you thought it was, and then you're morose and despaired. I mean, yeah. I like leaving things open-ended. It's like that's why personal responsibility for your actions, personal ethics, thinking about what you do as you do it, it will, generally speaking, lead to good results because you're setting up a relationship and a path with the universe that will lead you where you ought to be going. And if you're too focused on like a goal-oriented thing, like developing your psychic abilities or raising your Kundalini or
Right,
whatever,
the specific goal.
yeah, the specific goals, then other opportunities that might appear, you won't notice them. And that's one of the reasons I have so many unusual experiences is because I do my best to be in the moment. Like when Ian and I, before we got married, the year we got married, we went up to Mount Shasta, and these people noticed us. I noticed them. They were doing their thing. We were doing our thing, and they came back and they gave me a rose quartz heart, which I used in my wedding because everybody was in the moment and they were moved to do that. They actually went back, they went down the mountain to a store, bought it, and came back up specifically to give it to us. That kind of stuff is not uncommon for me. And then after we were together, we were again on Mount Shasta and got to participate in a sweat lodge given by Charlie Tom, one of the last Modoc shamans, Native American shamans. And that happened because of me too, because I noticed the activity of what was going on, and I stopped and I asked. I had been to one there before in Panther Meadows on Shasta, and so I recognized the preparations because, I can build one myself, so I know what it takes, and I could see the activity, and I thought, I think there's a sweat. And Ian was worried about us interrupting them and it not being available to us, and I'm like, well, we'll ask. If it's not available, then they'll tell us. If it's a close experience, that's not a problem. But if it's open, then we can go. And it was a pretty remarkable experience. Ian was really happy that we got to participate in that. But that's an example of how that works because, following my instincts and allowing it to lead me places and then paying attention to what's going on around me allows these things to happen because when they do, I see them. And so you can be having those kinds of things trying to happen throughout your life and not notice the hint or whatever and just sort of gloss right by it and then miss out. It's sort of an interesting process. But I've been very happy with my communication with the universe so far, even though, the beginning part was sucky. So Moonface says, I just love your stories. Thank you. I am a storyteller. That's one of our family's superpowers. Everyone in my family, all of the women in the family, my mother, me, my sisters, my daughter, and my granddaughter are all storytellers. It's just kind of part of our fabric, I guess. And I like hearing other people's stories because there's such a difference between hearing a personal encounter that someone's had and reading a dissertation in a book about it, and how it's supposed to work. Jonathan says, yay, seizing opportunities is difficult, but that's what we should be doing. Well, not seizing them by the throat, though. We want to embrace the opportunities rather than seize them, maybe. Yeah, it's because they could get scared off. I can imagine. Here comes an opportunity, and you just lunge at it, and it goes like and runs away. It's like, no, I don't know what that was. Oh, what the heck? So yeah, that could be fun. Writer says, would be wonderful if you did a video telling a story. I love stories. Well, almost all of my videos are telling stories. My own personal stories. You mean like a specific story? Like not mine, someone else's story?
Well, you could do.
Well, I did do that actually.
Oh, okay.
I did in the Samhain one. I did the story of the descent of Inanna and Ereshkigal story. Pretty sure. I'll have to look, but I'm pretty sure I did that. So have you guys discovered that we did some playlists to try and help, kind of categorize things as well as we could? Writer says, fireside story time with Siofra. Well, yeah, this week, just a few days ago, actually, I watched a program on Amazon called Sacred Sites Ireland, and it was fabulous. I was really excited to watch it because they started off in Sligo County, where my family is from, and I hadn't even heard about these sacred caves that are there. And they were talking about the god Lu. Of course, his celebration comes up in August, the beginning of August, and how they think he was actually a comet that came by, and the evidence that they have to support their theory about there having been a comet at the time that the stories about him, the kinds of stories that they told about him, and then the celebrations that they did around him would make sense. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. We could do myths. I love myths. We could have the myth stories or something like that. That was, yeah. She says, yes, stories like that. Canary says, I've been feeling very displaced lately. Could that be connected to the Kundalini? Well, you can feel disoriented for sure when the Kundalini is doing its thing. And also, it could be like a shift in your energy. My granddaughter right now is going through her first Saturn return, and a lot of stuff is happening to her. And when I went through my first Saturn return, that's when I started channeling and did that for quite a few years. And, all that stuff just sort of just exploded open and changed my life completely. So, it could be something related to that where, you're like on the brink of something changing and opening up. And so you're in your old life, but you're not quite in and leaving it, but not quite in your new life. And so there's this gap in between as you're transitioning from one kind of experience of reality to another. So, and Kundalini could certainly be a representation of that happening, I think.
Well, the problem is it can cause almost any psychological symptom you can think of, depending on how your body is and how you're balanced.
He's way over there on the other side of the room.
Well, you can have almost any symptom psychologically or physically from Kundalini. The most various and random things. It all depends on where you've got blockages and where you don't, and how your energy flows. And each case is pretty much individual, for what that's worth.
So Jonathan says he's got Samhain coming up in 2 weeks, and he started taking the Sabbats and the SBATs seriously. It's been very rewarding. I'm planning to watch your Halloween video. I think I have 2 that I did about Samhain, Thinning of the Veil, and just one called Samhain. But I put them in under the Sabbats. Yeah, so realize I haven't done a how to make your own wand video either. I have a whole bunch of material on how to do that, so I was thinking that might be a good one to do. And then when we do Akasha, that's going to be like very spacey. I'm going to get extremely spacey when I do that video.
Throat chakra.
The Akasha?
Yeah. Throat chakra is Akasha.
Really? Interesting. I did not know that. So Canary says, sounds really cool, and that makes sense. I feel like I'm somewhere I am not, but I do not know where I am, if that makes sense. Thanks to both of you. I'll expect the unexpected. Yeah. And they can be unsettling for sure when you're going through that, because like my son is moving up here from down in California, and they're doing a huge shift. He's decided that being close to family is more important than making gobs of money. Apparently, he makes gobs of money. I don't. And they decided that they were going to move up here, and they're moving his wife's parents up here as well, so that his wife can be close to her parents, and so he can be close to me and his sister who lives up here. And the things that they're doing are sort of mind-bending when it comes to how much he's shifting his life. This is like a huge kind of shift. And so it's like he is They're selling their house. They've actually already gotten it empty, moved into an apartment. He's quitting his job. He's applied for an online position with the same company. He's not sure if he's going to get. There's a lot of unknown things, like will they come together or not. And then after they sell the house, coming up here and finding the property that they want with the amount of houses that they want on it and moving everybody in. And so this entire year has been a huge transition for him. You going out again? Okay. You'll be back. So, whenever you're doing something like that, making it shift, he was just talking about that when I talked to him, I think on Thursday, he called me, and how this is, they're going to like not have as much money, they're going to have to learn how to budget, there's like these practical changes that have to take place, and then he's going to have to mentally adapt to all of those changes and so forth, and it's just they're completely changing their lives. Their lives will completely be different from the moment they come here. It'll be a new chapter. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised about the unsettling kind of thing. Moonface says, I've been wanting to get into the SBATs lately, getting closer to the Moon Mother. I did do a video about the moon and drawing down the moon that you might want to watch. So, if you want to. Jonathan says, on the Kundalini line of thought, considering a question you answered last week, would you consider doing a video on sex magic? I'm not sure how YouTube would view that. Well, but I think we could do that. We might not be able to have any advertisers on it. They get really freaky with that. But I'll check it out and see, because I think, that's something a lot of people are interested in. And certainly the energy that you can raise during that is something that people use at different stages in their life. So we'll give that some thought for sure. Just don't want to get the crazy people on my channel. I already have to get rid of a number of people here and there who put links to porn sites as comments on some of my videos here. But I'll just have to be a lot more, at least I have it set up so I have to approve comments and that kind of thing. And so Jonathan was asking whether or not we would consider doing a video about sex magic. And I've said we've got some issues potentially with YouTube and stuff like that, but I think we can do one on that. I'm just going to have to.
Yeah,
I'll have to monitor, of course, all the comments and everything else, and probably have a slew of people showing up that we're going to have to boot. Moonphase says, I would love a video on sex magic, and Jonathan says, hooray. I guess we'll see what happens. Certainly there's plenty of stuff out there that's been written about it.
Enochian sex man.
Enochian sex man, no.
That's Lon Duquette's book.
Is it? Enochian? Oh, that's right. That's right. They made him put sex magic in the title so it would sell better.
Yes, and they made him put in like 2 or 3 pages on the subject.
Yeah, that was the publisher's idea. Yeah, we met Lon. Okay, so Jason says, I just watched your moon drawing video. Ironically, I love your moon veil. Thank you very much. It was I'm like that. I was a belly dancer for years, so costuming is kind of one of my things. Canary says, disable the comments for that video? No, I don't need to do that because comments have to be approved by me before anyone else can see them. And that's what we've been doing all along, which I think is wise considering, like I said, some people have put links in the comments to porn sites and then I just block them from the channel. It's just not okay behavior. That's boundaries, setting up proper boundaries and that kind of thing. So as long as people are respectful when they ask questions and so forth, and we're not like getting into prurient interest type of stuff, I think that it should be fine for the channel. So, at Ryder says, at Jason Smith, it's beautiful, isn't it? All shimmery. I love it. Oh, that's my veil. Yes, my moon veil. It looked like moonlight to me. Jacqueline says, very interested in information about making wands. I finished my first one this winter. I would like more information on how to make wands for specific uses. Okay, we'll definitely do a video on that too. Apparently I'm going to have to start making a list. I need to do one on the consecration, or dedication, consecration, charging of tools, or we did some charging, but and then making the wands, and the way I make them, and then other ways of making them to give people ideas. And depending on what you're making the wand for, it charges up different. If you want to see some of my different wands, I think I have a video called Magical Tools that mentions some of them. And I might have one just on all of my wands and what kinds of energy they have, because I discovered that wands are not just a one trick pony. I mean, they're like probably the most versatile tool we have in our bag, and it's the most ignored tool. It's just kind of interesting. When we went up to Walport for a ritual with the Wiccan group up there, and they, gave us a job of calling in a direction. And I think I had the south, and I used my solar wand to call in the direction, and they were like, well, we never thought of using a wand for casting a circle and drawing a circle and all this other stuff. So I was like, okay, yeah, it is definitely one of those things. I was curious. All right, nope, let me put that on there. Apparently those words are making YouTube hold everything in review. So I'm going to approve this, Jonathan. I have to approve it for it to show up. Let's see. Yes, Jason says she is the wand maestro. Jonathan says, yes, I read Modern Sex Magic by Donald Craig. Very interesting. Just curious what my high priestess has to say. Okay. Yeah, so I certainly don't have a problem with the notion.
He's mostly oriented towards what I would call Western style sex magic.
Well, yeah, was he a Crowleyite?
I don't know specifically, but he's along the same lines. But it's sort of like a Cunninghamish version, you know what I mean? So it's like it's okay, but it's not plumbed to the depths. It's a little superficial, I guess. But on the other hand, I'm in general, because I have not read that specific book.
You mean you've read some of his other books?
I've read some of his other books, yes.
I see, okay.
And that seems to be generally the attitude.
Jonathan says he respected Crowley. So he must have mentioned him in the book. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So maybe we need to do a couple of different things on this, because there's not just sex magic. There's bodily fluid using and spell work and stuff like that, which is sort of like a side subject to that, I guess.
Which Barton calls mummia.
Mummia?
Yep.
Ah.
Meaning anything off the body.
Anything off the body, it's called mummia. Okay. So does that mean you're mummying?
Well, it's kind of related the way he uses it, but then he's translated from Czech, so.
Yeah. So, yeah. Being translated from another language can make things come out odd. Depending on that, and you have that trouble a lot. I mean, there's a lot of magical texts that are out there that seem like they'd be awesome and really cool from ancient cultures and stuff like that. And, the people who are translating them aren't magical at all by how they write about it. So they don't understand the concepts that they're translating. And I think a good translation of magical text has to come from someone who actually understands the principles of magic. So Jonathan says, yep, the elixir. Well, that's a specific thing. I'm talking about all different kinds of bodily fluids, not just the elixir.
Yeah, and that's something I really can't talk about in particular.
I can. I've made it.
Because I've taken some oaths on the subject.
I've made some, so I can talk about it. And I have no oaths, so I'm good with that. Yeah, so, well, that was an interesting sidebar that we got into this. But this is what we want. We want to know what people want to learn more about, because, you know, you are the people we're doing this for. I'm not doing this for my own edification, and, you know, neither is Ian. It's just an offering to other people to help them on their path and hopefully give them some ideas so they don't make too many gigantic mistakes. If we can help avoid them, that would be good. Not everyone learns that way, though. My daughter's one of those. Moonfae wants to know, what is the elixir? That will be on the video about sex magic. I don't want to get too far afield on this one.
I think I watch it because there's the difference. We might be talking about different things. Crowley's elixir of life is not exactly the same thing as what the Hindus call the elixir or amrita.
Okay, well, that's okay. Jason says, definitely learning. Jonathan says, okay, I'm done now. So we can go on to another subject.
I'm fine with whatever subject.
Yeah, I'm fine with the subject, but I just don't want YouTube to start freaking out, because, I mean, heck, there was a town in...
spelled B-I-T...
Yeah, B-I-T-C-H-E, and Facebook took their town down because they thought it was a bad word. It's the name of their town.
Pronounced beach, apparently.
Yeah, beach is how it's pronounced, and Facebook algorithm got in there and just went, okay, can't have that. They had to petition the company to get their town page put back up, and they did. It worked, which often it doesn't work with Facebook because you never know. But they did succeed in getting their town page back, and it made the news. So you can, yeah. So we have to be doing that. So Ryder says, I would be intrigued watching videos on everything that has been brought up tonight. All fascinating.
Well, it just occurred to me, though, I have a way talking about some of that stuff because it's in Indian tantric texts, which is mostly where the sex magic and stuff that Crowley and those, the OTO and other similar ilk, the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light, got their information. And I feel like it's more authentic, but it's definitely a more meditational practice than a magical ritual, though it is pretty ritualistic at times. So
Jason says, yes, just word things carefully, since a lot of it is artificial intelligence. Yes, and the emphasis is not on the word intelligence when it comes to that. Trinity says, same here. And she has 2 eyes surrounded by feet. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
What?
2 eyes surrounded by feet. See? I think those are shoes. Are those shoes?
Probably not, but
Okay, well, there's always things up there that I don't know.
I'm not sure what they are.
I'm always learning new things. Ears. Oh, that makes more sense. All eyes and ears. I can see them ears now, but from here they're just little brown blobs, you know, and they're kind of in the general shape of a foot. All right, see, that's my issue with my literal brain, too, is like I'm trying to figure out what literal that is. It's annoying sometimes, though, having a literal brain. Ian had I don't remember a lot of jokes because of it. He had this joke he told me every year for, 10, 12 years?
Something like that.
Something
yeah.
like that. And the last time he told me the joke, I looked at him, I says, you've told me this joke before, haven't you? He said, yes, I have. And I says, and I never remember it, do I? No, you don't. So that time I remembered the punchline, so now he can't tell me the joke anymore. But my sense of humor is different, for sure, than...
It was a horrible joke anyway.
It was a bad joke. Definitely a bad joke. But it was just, he thought it was so funny that I never remembered it. So every so often he would do that. He does stuff like that. We have like a wooden cat, little cat statue, you know, it's got like a tail up and stripes on it. Just this little thing we picked up at, I don't know where we picked it up, at warehouse something or other. Something,
I think. Yeah.
Something like
Maybe.
that. And he moves it.
Newport.
Every so often he moves it. And I'll be, you know, looking around, all of a sudden I'll look up and it'll be perched on top of the mail thing, or perched on top of a speaker, or perched on. It's like he just moves it to different places and then waits for me to notice it's there. And it's like, yeah, it's just sort of our little joke kind of a thing, which is quite funny. No, he's not telling you the joke. I'll type you the joke later. How's that? But Jason says, kind of boot-shaped ears. I see it now. Well, I just found out something last week, too. Apparently one of my sisters is one of my subscribers and often watches this. So if you are, hi. I'm so glad to hear that you partake. And if you're out there at some point when I'm live, say hi and let me know. So that was just kind of cool. Jonathan said fair. With a cry tear. Aw. Yeah, we're just a bunch of cut-ups, aren't we? Yeah. Now that we've gotten off on that, what do we want to talk about next? Come on, guys. Give me a subject. I want a subject. Although that thing about Lou and the comet was pretty fascinating. I thought it made perfect sense. And some of those structures in Ireland are just amazing to look at. My goodness, they're the ancients' ability to build things that were so in tune with when the sun would rise and set on certain days and what the moon was going to be doing and stuff all around the world is just phenomenal. Oh, I know. Have you ever heard that there is a story about Atlantis from Ireland? According to the Irish in Sligo County, Atlantis used to be off the coast of Ireland. And my mom heard about this when she was there with her brothers and was surprised to hear. And so, she told me about it. And then I looked it up, and someone has actually written a book about the subject, about the myths around Atlantis being off the west coast of Ireland. And the people in Sligo County said that the Atlanteans, some of them came and were refugees and mixed races or gene pool or whatever with them. And in my family, we have these occasionally extremely tall men. It's just sort of a weird thing. Even like 150 years ago, we had men who were like 6'3" and 6'4". My uncle is about that height. My son is also pretty tall. He's like 6'3" or so. And it's like when they were there in Ireland, I think the last day that they were there before they came back, they were at one of the churches of Ireland, and a woman came up to my uncle and looked at him and says, "You're Goulden, aren't you?" Which is my grandmother's maiden name. And sure enough, he was, and he's like, "Yes, how did you know?" And the tallness apparently is well known over there for being from that particular family line. I don't know if there's other families that have it too, but that was sort of fascinating to me. You just never know. Jason says, I just saw a video about how St. Patrick overlapped Lou. Oh, Philippa says, universal condenser, please. I know, we need to make some more. I'm going to get something so that we can make a video using a camera strapped to our heads or whatever so that we can show you how it's made, because we have this set up in here and we don't really want to transfer it over to the kitchen and all this other stuff. So we'll see. But yeah, that might be the same video or similar video because they talked about St. Patrick and Lou in there. I don't know. Well, if you get the name of the video, let me know. You can put it in comments or something on the community site. And we're really close to 4,000 subscribers, which is just awesome. I think we only need like 12 more people or something to get up there, something like that. 16 somewhere. Yeah. So Violet says, if I have a serpentine stone, do I imbue it with my thought for a purpose? And do I carry it around or leave it sit somewhere programmed? Is that how stone magic works? Depends on what you're trying to do with the stone. Now, if what you're trying to do is affect yourself or protect yourself when you're outside and you want to have it in your pocket, if you want it for health, then you probably want to carry it with you as much as possible. If what you want it for is to collect a specific kind of energy to do something with later, then you don't have to carry it with you because it's working on whatever the program you gave it happens to be. Yeah, so like,
Charge it with will.
well, or with the energy of whatever it is you're trying to
Well, yeah,
imbue.
use your
Right. It's sort of like giving it, you're imprinting it with a task kind of thing and letting it know what you want it to do. And it works best if you know the properties of the stone you're working with. So, for example, if you used a rose quartz and you tried to make it get you a job, that might not work as well as using, something else that was more associated with money or work or prosperity or what have you, instead of like love, self-love, calmness, and healing. So it's always, that is definitely part of the process of this learning, and you're going to have different associations with different stones. Like when I read books on what these stones are for, I look at them all. I sometimes write them down. I have like a notebook full of different properties for different stones and so forth. And then I have to decide whether I think that that's correct for me and whether the stone feels that it's correct for it. I mean, so there's a lot of a lot of stuff. So Jonathan said, "Thank you, Philippa." Violet says, "I also never get jokes, and I never understood why until you said literal." Yeah, some people tell me jokes, and then they give me the punchline, and I'm going like, "Really? That doesn't seem like such a great idea," or "That's not very funny. That person was hurt." I'm like, "What?" Anyway. Philippa says, "But what is the universal condenser, please? Pardon my ignorance, but I have no idea." Okay, so the universal condenser is a formula of herbs and gold tincture and so forth that you can use for any magical purpose for charging up an object and for it retaining the charge. It helps to pull the energy in, and being universal, it will work on planetary energies or elemental energies, whatever kind of energy, whatever kind of energy you're trying to use. So it will work with that. And sometimes we like to make the universal condenser because you don't have to have any others. Barton has formulas for each element and for each planet for condensers, so you can be specific and use just the one for the one that you're doing. But if you're going to go to the trouble of having to put all this stuff together, then we figure we make there's like 20 some odd herbs in it, I think, and
gold.
Yeah, the gold tincture, and then vodka is what we use for the alcohol to keep it so that it doesn't go bad. We gave some to one of our former coven mates, and the bottle leaked, and it leaked on her arm, and she freaked out and called us and said that it was like poison or it had gone bad because it's like a funny color and all this, and her energy was going all over the place. And we're like, what? Why are you doing this? So she had a tendency to actually kind of have excessive reactions to things, so we put it down to that because it's pure. It's pure. What's the word?
Skylar was one.
Oh no, that's not the word I'm looking for though. The word I'm looking for is it doesn't go bad. Whatever that word is. Not purified, just not bad. So let's see. Ryder says, "Flew over to Ireland once for work. Company paid for flights and accommodation, and it was incredible, beautiful country." Yeah, if I ever get a chance to go somewhere, that's probably that would be one of the places on my wish list, would be to go to Ireland. And Jonathan says, to Philippa, "I highly recommend Franz Barton's Initiation to Hermetics." And that's the one that has the formulas in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's got all the formulas in it. And yes, you're welcome from me as well.
Except it doesn't have planetary condensers, but you can get an idea from his second book, has the planetary incense.
Okay, so there's
kind of
no.
like a fluid condenser.
Okay, so he said there's no planetary condensers?
Right, but the universal condenser contains aspects for all the planets.
Right, the universal condenser would work for planetary energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I've used it for any number of things because, it's like so useful whenever you want to charge something up. So Rita S. says, could you give me some ideas for some herbs for protection that I can plant in my garden? Rosemary, always rosemary. Sage is another good one for protection. Sometimes with rosemary, if you're under magical attack, a rosemary plant will take the hit and die. I had that happen to one of mine, that the wood actually got pretty thick. Rosemary wood is actually pretty fantastic stuff. But rosemary is pretty easy to grow for most people. It's a very forgiving plant. And I read online the other day that some people put like a red ribbon or string or something around the rosemary to protect it from magical attack. Although I'm not sure what that means, if it just rejects the attack and still protects you or not. Depends, I guess, on your path and so forth. So Jonathan says, actually, it's maybe worth mentioning to this community that I have fewer questions for Siofra because I am working through Barton's framework. Yeah, there's a lot of information in those books. Trinity says, I have rosemary plant on the right side of my door and a sage plant on the left. Yes, sounds perfect. Jonathan says, always rosemary, sage is for healing. And sage is good for banishing negative energy, so it can help with that kind of protection as far as it goes. So, and a lot of people like, I grow lavender. The fairies apparently really like lavender, but I just like lavender myself. So lavender is a good one. People use it for calmness and soothing and stuff like that. I know there's a huge thing about using it in like chocolate and stuff, but I like my chocolate straight. I don't like it flavored with lavender. But hey, some people love lavender in food, and so, whatever it takes, I guess. What people like is what they like. Moonface says, I have got rosemary and sage growing now. There's tons of pine trees in my yard, too. Yeah, and pine cones are something that you can use for protection. You can plant cones, like, around the edge of your property and stuff like that. And, yeah, I was reading about that. So you can, and she also has lavender growing. It looks like she's got everything she needs. A lot of people say rue is a good one. I've not been able to buy any rue that will grow in my yard. I think I had it once, and unfortunately, this can happen with plants, or at least it does with me. I have someone who used to be in our group who left our group, and she's a gardener. And if she gives me a plant, it always dies. It doesn't matter. And if I buy a plant, when she's around, it dies. It's like, it just won't work at all. So I just stop buying plants when she's in town because, I don't want my plants to die so long as she didn't grow them. Trinity says she actually bought a rue plant today. Oh, awesome. I haven't seen one in our stores around here. Jacqueline says I wear lavender oil for perfume. Jonathan says pine needles for cleansing. And actually, pine essential oil, a pine tree told Ian that it would help with the seasonal affective disorder during the wintertime. And it does. It does help him quite a bit. But if you're going to use an essential oil to drink, one, know for sure you're not allergic to it. Two, don't put it in a plastic container because essential oils are volatile and they will consume the plastic. And glass is the only safe thing to put essential oil in.
Just a drop.
And just a tiny bit. Yeah, just a drop in a cup of water or something like that if you're going to use one of the volatile essential oils. But like everything else, you've got to make sure that you're not allergic to it. So Jacqueline says, lots of people are allergic to rue. You have to be careful. I have one in my garden. Yeah, maybe that's why I don't have one. Maybe I'd be allergic to it and I don't know it yet. Writer at Moonfay, that's lovely. You can do a lot with pine too. Tea, pine resin, disinfectant, pine cones for decorations, and good for starting campfires. Yeah, because it's very easily caught on fire. I think that fire is actually, the pine is associated with the element of fire because of that.
Or you can use it to mummify yourself alive.
Well, let's not mummify people alive. Not today. We've already touched on one subject.
Those old monks did.
I know. It's against the law now to mummify yourself while you're living. Philippa says, I have a rose of Jericho near my front door. Well, inside my downstairs bathroom, right next to the front door. Had it there for years and never thought anything of it. Learned just last week, and we're waiting for the rest of that response to come in. What she learned. Trinity says, Rue and I really seem to get along. I love using it for my candle magic. Yeah, rue is considered a really wonderful herb. So Philippa adds that having a rose of Jericho near your front door is protective. Rue is also an abortive, just walking. There's a lot of plants that are natural abortives and poisonous too, so you definitely have to know your plants. When I collected the yew for my fairy wand, I collected some yew seeds and I have them saved. I've not used them because I don't want to use them at the moment. I don't have anything to use them for. But in ancient times, women used to consume, I think, 2 to 3 seeds in order to stop a pregnancy because they are toxic and highly poisonous. Every part of the yew is poisonous except for the flesh of the berry. So you can actually make jam out of the flesh of the berry, but you can't use the seed, the bark, or the leaves, or anything else. Okay, Rita said, thanks, everyone. Jonathan says, let's mummify people alive today. Love you, Ian. Yeah, we're going funny. Philippa says, though, where am I? A field of rue can cause termination, apparently. Yes. There were things that we know about plants. And if you're going to be using plants for medicinal purposes or anything like that, you definitely need to know your body and everything else. My granddaughter right now is going through a hard time, and I think she's having a reaction to aspartame. I have a bad reaction to aspartame. It gives me doomsday attacks. She's been drinking it on a daily basis, and she thinks she's going insane. And she's panicking, and she thinks that the world's going to come to an end, which sounds like a doomsday attack. So we're trying to get her to stop drinking it altogether and see if those symptoms go away or not before we figure out what's happening with her. So the things that you put in your body can seriously affect how your brain and your mind and your spirit can interact with one another. And so figuring out what those things are is your best bet for continued health and for continued learning and for, getting far enough along the path without having your body fall apart on you, that kind of thing. So, not the body as a temple kind of stuff, but just because if you want to survive long enough, you need to take care of your house. That's kind of what I mean. Moonface says, yes, I feel so connected to my pine trees. I use them for smudging. And Ryder says, I knew what you meant. Whatever she said. I'd have to go back and look at it. All right. But yes, if you want to find out about mummification, you can. There's any number of documentaries on the subject. Pine trees are very preservative, antiseptic kind of thing, sort of like salt. Jason says, aspartame was meant to be a drug, and once it was rejected, he sold it as a sweetener. Actually, I believe aspartame was originally created to be an insecticide, and the person who was making it spilled some and accidentally tasted it and discovered that it was sweet. And that's what I've heard about it anyway. Jaleesa says, I'm late, but hi, Siofra. Hi, everyone. You're very late. We've only got a few minutes left. I'm so sorry. Trinity says at Moonfae, I have a lot of one trees in my neighborhood too, but I'm allergic. Yeah, I know someone who's allergic to cedar, I think. Cedar poisoning is very serious. I met someone once who actually had it, and it was sort of like poison oak, poison ivy, and poison sumac on steroids. Yeah, it was terrifically horrible, the poor man. Siofra, ever worked with eyebright? not specifically, but eye bright's supposed to make a good wash to help your eyes, which is why they call it eye bright. I've used chamomile for an eye wash, and I think it's got similar properties. Writer says, sorry, I knew what Moonfae was saying before she retracted her message and wrote a new one. Trinity said pine. Yes, pine. Writer said it to Lisa, hi. Moonface says, Trinity, yeah, all the pine pollen can mess with people. Right now we have very high pollen count in our area, and the tree pollen is the thing that's out there. So, yeah, undoubtedly, that's one of the reasons why Ian is having an allergic reaction. Even if he's okay with using pine oil, it doesn't mean that pine pollen might not be a problem. Any kind of pollen. Yes, we have reactive noses and sinuses and things. So more of the people that are close to me are getting their shots. I'm pretty tickled about that. Thank goodness. Want people to be protected. And Ian is scheduled for his second shot the last Sunday in April. So I guess we need to do, maybe next week we can talk about the upcoming May Day or Samhain, depending on where you live in the world, if you want to talk about that. I'll do a video on that. I think that's one of the holidays I don't have a video specifically on. I was looking through this stuff. But, yeah. Gonna have to remember all these subjects now. We have a lot of subjects. So we got 4 minutes, people. What do you want to say? I'm waiting. Everybody got quiet. Okay then. Oh, here comes somebody. Violet says, I do so love your immense knowledge. Yay, aspartame is in all gum, too. I chew the same piece for weeks because of this. Oh, got 2 shots, too. Moderna. The second knocked knocked her out and made her flat for a day or two. I still recover. Sleep at night is tricky. Yeah, the second one can really get your immune system going. Jason says, I got my second shot a few days ago. Kind of kicked me in the boo-boo for a day, but I feel great today. Awesome. Jonathan says, Siofra, your video to-do list is getting long. Yes, it is. But hey, it gives me subjects to focus on, and I don't have to sit there and think, what am I going to do this week? I don't know. Philippa says, I want to say thank you. You're welcome. Moonface says, this was so fun. I got to make it here next time. Yeah, we can certainly have a lot of laughs. Writer says, thank you for a good evening. Enjoyed the subjects brought up. All right. So, yep, it's definitely been a fun show, I guess is what we call it. All right, guys. Only 2 minutes left, so I guess we're just going to continue with saying our goodbyes.
Blessed be. Goodbye.
Ian says, blessed be and goodbye. Violet says, I have to set my phone each week to remember because I'm old that way. Yeah, my granddaughter almost missed her massage appointment because she set her phone to remember and then she put it on silent so she didn't get it in time. You're welcome, Jonathan. Nice to see you guys again. Thank you for staying up for us. I really appreciate that. Everyone says blessed be and bye. Bye, bye, bye. Yes. Thank you all for being here, and I'll get busy on all these different videos. Let's see which ones we get out and when we get them out. And thank you. We'll definitely have a good week. I hope. I plan on it, but then life happens. You never know. So, bye, Ian and Siofra. Have an awesome week. Bye, everyone. All right. Bye, all. Good night, Ian. Good night, Siofra, Jason says. All right, guys. Blessed be everybody. Be safe out there.